honor, and privilege, as it is every day, to have you, my international friends, gather around as we talk about our favorite things in the world, movies and movie news and all sorts of good things. And ladies and gentlemen, oh, wait a minute. Are we having a technical problem? I think we're having a technical problem already. Let me double check this. I think we're having a bit of a technical problem. I will see. 1 second. Oh, no, we seem to be up and running. Are you guys able to see and hear me okay? Just let me know if you guys are able to see and hear me okay, because it looks like we're having a little bit of a technical issue. But let me know, guys, if we're live. Yeah, you guys are saying you're seeing me live. All right, you see me. Great, wonderful. Got the technical issue worked out. It's going to be one of those days. Guys, it's great to have you here. My voice is a little bit gone from doing like, I don't know, 5 hours of videos yesterday, like 45 hours of videos in the last week or so. My voice is starting to go a little bit, so hang in there with me, because we got today's show to get through, and we've got the WandaVision spoiler discussion a little bit later today. Guys, a bit of a heads up. Normally, Ann and I do our WandaVision spoiler video at 4 p.m. on Fridays. Today, it's starting at a special time. Today, instead of 4 p.m., it will be starting at 2 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. So it's going to be starting 2 hours earlier than normal. So if you guys, I know I said the other day it would be 4 p.m. as usual. I've had to bump that up a little bit. So we are going to do the WandaVision spoiler discussion at 2 p.m. today instead of 4 p.m. today. So yes, there you go. And hopefully my voice will still be able to hang in there after today's show, and we get into WandaVision. Speaking of WandaVision, guys, did you see the news? And I don't know if you guys were aware of this. And Francisco in the live chat is saying that they love the show. Thank you, Francisco. Appreciate that. I don't know if you saw this, but last night, NBC News is now reporting too that WandaVision is so popular, it caused Disney Plus to crash in the middle of the night. So the report goes on to say that basically right about when WandaVision launches, of course, the new episodes launch at midnight my time. So midnight Pacific Standard Time, that's 3 a.m. on the East Coast, and whatever time that is all around the world. And apparently now, there are so many people watching WandaVision and so many people trying to watch it the moment that it drops, that idiots like me are staying up till midnight to watch it. Some idiots like you are staying up till 3 a.m. in the morning. That's even more hardcore than me just staying up till midnight. Midnight, that's nothing. Some of you staying up till like 5 a.m. or getting up early at 5 a.m. to watch it. But apparently, it had a bit of a crash last night. Now, I was keenly aware of this because you got to understand, I have to get up at 5 a.m. or 6 a.m. depending on the day. So me staying up till midnight to start watching a show is not an easy thing. Staying up till midnight, okay, but staying up till midnight to just start watching a show, not an easy thing for me, especially when I have to get up particularly early. So here I am, staying up, Ann and I staying up, waiting to watch WandaVision. And midnight hits, and I go over, this is the picture, this is the tweet I put up last night. I try to load up Disney Plus on my TV last night, and it says, "We're sorry, we're having trouble connecting you to the service. Please check to see that you are still connected to the internet." I was. "And try again later. Error code 42. And I wrote out to Disney, "Hey, Disney Plus, what the holy fuck is this bullshit?" I was so mad. Boy, we are an entitled people, aren't we? I was so mad last night because I'm sitting here staying up till midnight to watch this stupid show. And then I'm like retrying it again. And here's the other thing. This is the other bullshit. Not only when I tried, so I don't know how many of you guys watch it on like a smart TV, either a Roku or an Apple TV or an Amazon Fire Stick, whatever. But when it wouldn't let me load in, not only, I couldn't just hit the button, say, try again, try again, try again. What it did was it took me right back to the login screen, and I had to log in all over again every time with the damn remote control. So it wasn't until about 12:20. I was getting ready to give up and go to bed. But yeah, I mean, listen, first world problems, right? Absolutely first world problems. But man, when it's midnight and you got to be awake in 5 hours already and you've stayed up to watch this show, like you're not thinking rationally. So I'm not thinking rationally. And so just when my little TV show wouldn't come on, I'm like, what is this bullshit? I was so mad. I was so mad. Totally an overreaction. Absolutely, totally an overreaction. But when it's midnight and you're tired and you're cranky and you've stayed up to watch a damn show and then the damn show doesn't come on, you get a little pissed. And I was pissed. But finally at about 12:20, just before I was going to give up and go to bed, it came on. So listen, please, guys, in the live chat tonight or today, wherever it is you're watching, whether it's this morning where I am, this afternoon, or tonight, wherever you are, please don't talk about spoilers for WandaVision in this live chat. We do have the event already posted for the WandaVision spoiler discussion. Again, that's happening at 2 p.m. today. You can go and talk spoilers over there. Please don't spoil it for people who may not have seen it here. So there you go. All right, guys, listen. It's an unusual Friday. Not a lot of news going around. I mean, there was Danny Elfman has been added as the composer for Doctor Strange 2. Not really major news. They kind of officially announced that the Snyder Cut would drop on March 18th. They've already kind of released that information before. We kind of already knew that. So we're just going to take today, special day today, just taking your live comments and questions. You guys are going to run the show today, taking everything that you guys want to talk about. So let's jump into it. Plus, we're a little bit behind, so we'll get a little bit caught up here. And I'm glad you guys are joining me today. All right, let's go over and start getting into it here, shall we? Trigpool writes, hey, John and Rob. Rob's not here today. Usually, somebody was asking, is Rob been taking Thursdays and Fridays off? Well, Rob never does Thursdays. It's very, 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 very rare that Rob is on Thursdays. So that's very rare. So normally he's never on Thursdays, but he's normally on Fridays. But whenever we don't have like a lot of main topics lined up, I don't like to waste his time and I don't want to take up his time. He's got other things he can be doing. So we just fly solo here. So that's what we're going to do today. All right. Anyway. They shouldn't recast Cara Dune after 2 seasons. The character and actor are embedded in the universe. That's not true. If Marvel had recast Pepper or Happy in Iron Man 3, then that would have been jarring. Rewrite the script for now until the dust settles. Well, I mean, here's why I completely disagree with you. I mean, you shouldn't recast things just all willy-nilly. Let's recast that lead role. Why? No reason. Let's just recast it. Go. I mean, you shouldn't recast. Whenever possible, you should keep the cast you have. But recasting is not the end of the world. Now, again, the great Chamberlain, he was Dumbledore. He passed away. That was a Gambone. Is that who they brought in? Anyway, they brought in another actor to play Dumbledore. And guess what? Everybody adjusted. Everybody adjusted. It was perfectly fine. Nobody felt pulled out of the movie. It was weird for a second, and then everybody's totally fine with it. Terrence Howard was Rhodey in the first Iron Man. Big major role in that film. And then when you get to the next Iron Man, they swapped him out with Don Cheadle. Terrence Howard's a great actor. So's Don Cheadle, but they swapped him out. And Don Cheadle just said, man, I didn't recognize you. And Don Cheadle goes, yeah, it's me. Get over it or get used to it, whatever it is. And guess what? Everybody was fine. It was fine. It's jarring for a second, and then we adjust. Like, the audience isn't a bunch of morons. We adjust. Now, look, I don't think they should recast the Cara Dune character either, and I don't think they will. I think they're going to want to keep their options open in case, like a year down the road, they may want to bring Gina Carano back, just like they brought James Gunn back. I'm not saying they will, but I'm saying they like to keep their options open. So, but no, recasting is jarring for a second. If they had to recast Pepper at some point before, yeah, it would have been jarring for a second, and then we would have adjusted, and we would have been fine. So, yeah, it's perfectly fine. All right, next up. Lizardtron writes, theory for WandaVision. Now, understand, any theory for WandaVision you're going to see was probably written in before the show came out yesterday. Theory for WandaVision on the season finale. By the way, can I just say, one of the things I love about WandaVision is every episode after the first one or two, every episode seems to confirm a couple of theories and totally destroy a couple of theories. And I find every episode that's happened for me personally. I'm sure it's happened for you too. A couple of theories that we had, that is the way it turned out. And then a couple of other theories we had, like, oh, that's totally different than what I thought. And it does it every episode, and I totally, totally love that. By the way, I just want to mention one call out one thing in the live chat. SM in the live chat says, Batwoman got recast, but I guess that's different. Batwoman didn't get recast. They changed the character. So yeah, the Batwoman situation is a completely different thing, because not only they didn't recast it, they didn't keep that character. Recasting means you have a character in a show or movie, and then you just replace the actress with another actress playing that same role. Batwoman's a totally different thing. It's a different character. It's not just a different actress, it's a different character. So Batwoman wasn't really a recast. It's kind of a different thing. Big difference. Anyway, let's get back over into Lizatron, who writes, theory for WandaVision. On the season finale, with all the magic she produced, it fractures the multiverse. Not enough to cause mayhem, but enough where Doc Ock, Electro, and any of the other Spider-Mans leak through. Once we get to Strange, it shatters. Maybe. I mean, that's kind of a popular one. By the way, Michael Meyer sends in a super chat badge in the live chat. Thank you so much for that, Michael. That is a theory that's been around for a bunch of people. And a lot of people are suggesting that Wanda and her actions and the things that happen in WandaVision are a crack open the multiverse. In a way, we've already been introduced to the multiverse, right? We've already been introduced to the multiverse from the events of Infinity War and more prominently in Endgame, with the time travel that created different timelines and parallel universes and all that kind of stuff. And then in Spider-Man Far From Home, they actually use the phrase multiverse, right? So that's a theory over there. So Lizatron, it could be. I don't know that they're going to do that, but it is one of the options that they have available to them right now. All right, next up, we got where we are. Kemonito writes, hey, John and crew, have you seen the new show of The Rock, of The Rock, Young Rock? I think it's great, but take it, I'm a wrestling fan, so take that with a grain of salt. By the way, before you clarified the whole anonymous name thing, my dumbass thought it was a really rich person. Yeah, so it's like, wow, this anonymous person sends in a lot of questions. Yeah, no, it's whenever somebody forgets to put in their name on the tip, it comes across as anonymous. That's why I'm always asking you guys, make sure you put in your name, because I want to make sure you get a shout out. I have not watched The Young Rock yet. Now, you know me. I am a big fan of Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. I am. But I just think the concept of this show is so stupid. I just think that now, again, I'm saying that as somebody who hasn't watched it yet, right? Maybe if I watched it, I would have a totally different point of view or a totally different opinion. But I just think the concept of it is so dumb that I really don't have any desire or any plan to check it out. But I don't know, if I hear from enough people, you guys know how it is. If I hear from enough of you that it's great, maybe I will go check it out. Thanks for the heads up on that, man. All right, I love ketchup on eggs writes, part 1. Hey, John and Rob. Rob's not here today, obviously. Love the show. Thank you so much. As you've often said, the witness protection person doesn't matter, and I agree. They don't matter in the show. But outside the show, they do. Now, hear me out. With witness protection, they usually move you far away. Westview is on the East Coast. It would make sense if this mystery person is from the West Coast. Jimmy Woo's, who's assigned to the individual, is also from the West Coast. That's a good observation, actually. Now it doesn't seem like the Sword director is interested, but why would he send one of his agents just for a missing person when Sword now focused on robotics and AI? 2 words, Justin Hammer. What better way to fill the void left by Tony's death than with the anti-Tony Stark? He's already familiar with Stark tech since the government let him tinker with an Iron Man suit. Now they'll let him tinker with Vision's body. I think this time he'll accidentally bring back Ultron. What do you guys think? Well, David Cabrera sits in a super chat badge in the live chat. Thank you, David. Last night, I won't talk about WandaVision episode 7, but last night during our WandaVision pregame show, I brought up 4 potential people who could be the engineer they're going to go see. 4 potentials. And one of them was Justin Hammer. I listed Justin Hammer as one of the possibilities. Now, of course, the big strike against that is that he's in jail. And I don't know if they could get him out for that, but that is one of the possibilities that I had thrown out there, that Justin Hammer, because remember, it's got to be somebody who's got the ability to do those things. What does Justin Hammer do for a living? It's got to be something that would excite people if they saw them. Sam Rockwell, ladies and gentlemen, Academy Award winner Sam Rockwell. But the drawback, of course, is that he's supposed to be in jail. So I don't know. We'll have to see. Again, I'm not making any mentions about what actually happened in episode 7, and I believe there's more to come. I don't believe we saw the resolution in episode 7. I'm just saying that. Not going to give any details. And Mike Farino sends in a super chat badge in the live chat. Thank you, Mike. But yeah, I mean, again, I didn't think it was probable that we would see Justin Hammer, but it's one of the possibilities. I think that is a legitimate possibility. All right, next up. Where are we at? Shadow Jester writes, "Hey, John. Hi. It's a way off, and I know you like boo-hoo the different... and I know you like to boo-hoo the different Loki angle, but I was just thinking, it's a different Loki, which means it's a different Thor. And it would be fun to see him as the season 2 bad guy, not a villain, but like a Hayward Thor." Well, I mean, here's the thing, though. The way that they did it in Endgame, everything's exactly the same in all these alternate timelines. Everything in the alternate timelines, everything is 100% exactly the same, right? That's why the Avengers could go back and they knew exactly where and when every single person and Infinity Stone would be. Because every time they go back, everything's exactly the same as it was in their history. Now, maybe it alters and changes from that point on. But the Loki that got plucked out of his time is the exact same Loki that we had in our universe, just a little bit previous, which means that Thor would have been the exact same Thor in that time too. So unless they change some things, that kind of sets that as being improbable. But you never know, you never know. Let's see what they do. All right, Shadow Jester also writes, "I think another part as to why they don't need to recast, but like, who was Cara Dune before Mando? Nobody. Because Star Wars is such a big universe, you can do that. There are literally millions of characters to use or hell, make up. More merchandise for Cara Dune. Now Dara. Now Dara. Yeah, you could do that. And look, the thing about, I mean, yes, you're absolutely right. The reality is Cara Dune wasn't a huge character in Mandalorian, right? She's in the minority of episodes. She's not in the majority of the episodes. I believe if you add it up, there are more episodes without her than there are with. So it's not like she's some big, major, can't do without her character. She's not like Baby Yoda, right? It's not like Baby Yoda from season 1, and then all of a sudden you come into season 2 and Baby Yoda's not there. Like it's not really the same as that. So again, I just think the main reason you don't recast Cara Dune is because you don't absolutely need to have the character there. And since you don't absolutely need to have the character there, you might want to keep your options open to bring her back later if things change down the line. And I know, look, I know right now it looks very unlikely that we would ever see Gina Carano back as Cara Dune. I know it's extremely unlikely, but again, Disney just seems to like to keep their options open, and so I don't think you're going to see them. And they've already kind of stated to Deadline that they don't plan to recast, so I think they're probably going to stick to that. All right, next up. Dan Whitehead writes. Where are we? Dan Whitehead writes. Have you gotten a chance to read Martin Scorsese's essay in the Harper's Magazine? I have not. I've heard about it. I wanted to read it, but no, I never did get around to reading that. He discusses how cinema has become devalued and sidelined for content. As some who he trying to make his own films, I can't help but agree with him on this. Your thoughts? Thanks. Well, again, I can't really give my thoughts on an article I haven't read. And I can't just hear what his thesis is but without understanding his rationale behind it, I can't say I agree or disagree. I do know this. Marty Scorsese is one of the greatest filmmakers of all time. He understands film and he understands film history. I may disagree with him when he thinks that Marvel films aren't cinema, but the dude's a smart dude. Dude's a smart dude. So I will just always give Marty Scorsese the benefit of the doubt because he's Marty Scorsese. But at some point, Dan, I do need to read that article, but I've just never gotten around to it. I mean, between between the move, and we're almost now fully settled into the new house. It's been 2 weeks now. Actually, today, it's 2 weeks today. It's been 2 weeks now. We are just about completely settled into the house now. But between the shows and then the WandaVision stuff and all the companion videos we're doing, I just haven't had the time, but I do need to get around to doing that. Thanks for keeping that on my radar, though, Dan. Next up, Joe Big Happy Dorame writes, I like that name. Hey, John, with the Zack Snyder Justice League on the way, where does that leave Aquaman and Shazam? Is Shazam part of Justice League now, or is he in limbo? And does this mean Aquaman 2 relate to this Justice League or Joss Whedon's Justice League? Thank you, and keep up the good work. Well, it's a good question. The thing is, you know, when you go to the guy who's in charge of all DC movies, Walter Hamada, he says the way he described, and I think it's a very accurate description, the way he described this Justice League is it's a cul-de-sac, which means it's a dead end. Like, this is a special thing. I mean, and let's be clear. You know, we said forever that they would never release the Snyder Cut theatrically. It was never going to happen. And sure enough, they didn't. When HBO came out, Rob and I made videos titled Why It's Time to Release the Snyder Cut on HBO Max. And we started saying, okay, now that HBO Max is here, you should release the Snyder Cut on HBO Max because it would be a great bump for HBO Max. And sure enough, about 3 months after we made that video, they made the announcement they're going to put Justice League on HBO Max. And it really is, it's smart, but it's a desperation publicity stunt. They're really just trying to get attention for HBO Max. And there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, a lot of moves that Disney does, that Paramount does, that Universal does, that all the studios do are basically publicity stunts to try to raise awareness for their products or their IP. But there is no plan to go beyond that. Even Zack Snyder himself came out and said, like Zack Snyder, who for years kept trying to tease that I'm going to do something. But now, when asked about that, is there any possibility you could do more? What did Zack Snyder say? I have no plans to do anything else. I mean, with DC. But don't forget, he's got this really good-looking movie, Army of the Dead, coming to Netflix pretty soon that I'm very excited about. So I really don't think you're going to see anything that happens in this Zack Snyder Cut Justice League be reflected in the expanded Warner Brothers universe. I don't think we're going to see anything change anything in the expanded Warner Brothers universe if what Walter Hamada said is accurate, that it is a cul-de-sac. If it's a cul-de-sac, that means it's a dead end. It doesn't actually branch off or go anywhere. It's a one-time thing. It's a one-stop destination to make everybody happy and make everybody excited and enjoy it. And that's what it is. But again, I'm just going by what Zack Snyder said and by what Hamada said. Hamada said it's a cul-de-sac. Snyder said he's got no plans to move anything forward. That means this is a dead end. They're going to do it. It's a one-time special event, just like Hamilton, right? Hamilton's great. Hamilton's a worldwide phenomenon, but there's no Hamilton sequel. There's no Hamilton spin-offs. It's Hamilton. Hamilton was a cul-de-sac thing. It's great. It's awesome. Made a lot of people happy. Makes a whole ton of money, but it was a one-time thing. I think that's what the Snyder Cut Justice League thing is. It's a one-time thing, at least, unless of course Walter Hamada and Zack Snyder are lying. But according to both of them, it's a one-time thing. All right, let's move on. Where are we at? Next up, Ian Wendu writes, I was just thinking about what the greatest movie meme in superhero movies, and it's got to be J. Jonah Jameson laughing at Peter when he asked for an advance payment in Spider-Man 2. Oh, that one's great. That thing with J.K. Simmons, the way he laughs as J. Jonah when Peter, that is a great meme. I still think my favorite one is Jaimon Hansu in Guardians of the Galaxy, and I keep forgetting the character's name. But when Star-Lord says, I'm Star-Lord, and Jaimon Hansu goes, who? I mean, that is one of my favorite. A lot of people use that one a lot too, and I like that one too, but it's really good. All right, let's see. Where are we at? The Winter Jedi writes. The Winter Jedi, I like that. Hey, John, first off, big thank you for keeping me sane during the pandemic with your show. Well, thank you so much for being here and being a part of it. Okay, so I wanted to ask, over or under 30% that Wanda actually started the hex right where Vision's remains were being kept, and that actually was the secret base in Westview. This idea would mean the majority of Westview's residents are agents and possibly from the same agency as Hayward thoughts. That's extremely unlikely. And the reason it's extremely unlikely is because, you know, when they remember the episode where they were trying to figure out who all the people inside Westview were, right? They would have said, oh, hey, this happens to be a sword agency. This is like hey, man, they're all government agents. But that's not what it was. It was just an average town of average people and all that kind of stuff, because you'd think that sword would have noted and recognized if a lot of people in there were actually sword agents. If that was the case, then they would have recognized them, and they didn't. So I'm going to go well under 30%. I'm going to go well under 30%. Not zero, but I'm going to go well under 30%. All right, next up. We've got, okay, so innuendo, 1 of 2. Okay, AJC writes, it just hit me. Avengers 5 will more than likely deal with the multiverse head on and give it its proper resolution. Everything we are experiencing now leads to this event. Secret Wars, loosely based on Hickman's run, it would be the way to bring in X-Men. Again, everybody is focused on them bringing in X-Men, and everybody keeps ignoring that Kevin Feige said explicitly, I've got a 5-year plan and no X-Men outside of that. I personally think, but I don't know this. This is just me as an average fan speculating. I personally think that this story arc, Kevin Feige didn't say this is the story arc of Phase 4. He said there is a story arc here with WandaVision, Spider-Man 3, and Doctor Strange 2. That means whatever this story arc is, it's going to come to a head in Doctor Strange 2. It's going to come to a head in Doctor Strange 2. Hold a second. I'm just going to mute some people in the live chat who are spoiling things for other people. All right. Anyway. So Kevin Feige seemed to be pretty explicit by that. He said there's a story arc that involves WandaVision, Spider-Man 3, Doctor Strange 2. So if you listen to what Kevin said, that kind of implies that this story arc comes to its resolution in Doctor Strange 2, Multiverse of Madness. And I think, ask me again when there's more information available. I may have a totally different theory then. But for now, with what little information we have, my personal theory is that the whole multiverse thing is going to be closed. They're going to finish the multiverse stuff in Doctor Strange 2. I think that's going to be part of the mission, part of the reason they're doing everything they need to do, and then we'll see where they go from there. But again, when more information comes available, I may have a totally different theory. That's just what I'm saying from our perspective right now. We'll see what we think a little bit later on. All right, next up, we've got Mischievous Gremlin who writes, since my name says it, I need to talk about some Gremlin news. Have you seen that the new Mountain Dew commercial has brought back Gizmo and Zach Galligan together? Also, HBO Max show Secrets of the Mogwai added Ming-Na Wen, BD Wong, Matthew Rhys to its cast. Yeah, and I would care about that if it wasn't an animated show. So, hold on a second. I just got to do some things here. So, if it wasn't an animated show, I would care that Ming-Na Wen, who I love her. She's great. Even in that piece of crap Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. show, I love her. She's wonderful. I like BD Wong, not only because he was in Jurassic Park, but he was in that show Awake that I love so much. But I very rarely get excited that about an actor doing a voice in a cartoon, because that gives them even less influence over it. I mean, it means very, very little. So there are occasions, and there are the occasional time where it does make a big deal and is a big thing. So there are exceptions, absolutely. But yeah, just in general, I don't think that it's worth getting excited about too terribly much. Hearing an actor is going to be doing a voice in an animated thing. That doesn't mean the animated thing isn't worth getting excited about, but just that I don't get excited about voice, famous actors being added as voice cast to a thing. Generally, there are some exceptions, but generally. All right, next up. We've got Ian Wendu who writes, I think we have concrete answers for WandaVision regarding what's going on. Remember, this was sent in before episode 7. We just don't know how it all started exactly. Pietro is definitely the antagonist. The reveals will happen this week and the solution to the problem. Well, I'm not going to say much. I'm not going to say much. Yeah, I am just not going to say much to that because, again, now some of us have seen episode 7 with whatever reveals, theory confirmations, theory debunkings has had, and all that kind of stuff. But I'll just let that simmer for now, Ian. All right. Piece of Me writes, Agnes is Agatha and involved because there were leaked set pics of her filming old Salem flashback scenes last year during the filming of WandaVision. I don't believe that's true. I think, if I remember correctly, I think that report got debunked. I can't remember exactly. It was a while ago, but I believe I remember reading, I think it was Coming Soon that debunked it, but I might be wrong about that. I'd have to go back and check it out again. Let's see. Jim Harm is saying, you got to stop shitting on Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. You literally stopped watching after season 1. No, I watched the whole thing. I made several videos saying, I'm just a sucker for the Marvel stuff. I have to keep watching it. No, I watched the whole thing, and it's a bag of shit. I mean, if you like it, that's awesome. It's all subjective. If you like Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., just because I didn't like it doesn't take away any of the validity of you liking it. That's great if you like it. I wish I liked it. I'm envious of you if you liked it. But yes, to me, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. was a big bag of shit show. So it is what it is. All right, next up. By the way, I see a couple of people sending in. Guys, look at the top. For those of you watching live, if you look at the top pin chat, the top pin comment, do not use super chats to send in questions for the John Campea Show. Now, most of the time, super chats are turned off, but we have to have them turned on right now on the channel so people can send in questions for the WandaVision spoiler discussion. But please do not use super chats to ask questions here on the John Campea Show because they're going to get missed. Because we only address the tip questions that you see here for the John Campea Show. This is how we keep the questions separated so we know which show was a question sent in for. So if you send in a question in the super chat, that's going to end up getting addressed on the WandaVision spoiler discussion because that's how it separates it out. So that's why we've got that pinned at the top. So I'd appreciate if you guys in the live chat can remind people of that if you see them writing that in. So thanks for that. All right. Next up. Where are we at? Okay, we're up at Aviator 986 writes, I know it's been crazy lately, but do you ever consider doing more live movie events on the show? Like live watching Infinity War was a blast. You should get Rob involved as well. I mean, I should be very clear about something. Rob is not an employee of my channel. Rob is a guest from time to time. And Rob has a lot of big, important things he's doing. Like he just wrapped up working on this huge 2-year brilliant project of Tango Shalom that you always hear me talking about. You guys should absolutely go and check that out. Plus he has his own channel and stuff like that all the time. So I mean, Rob doesn't have the time. I don't have the time, stuff like that. And so if I do things like that, it's whatever, but I'm not a big live reaction guy. Now, once in a while, what I'll do, but not for reaction, is I liked using that Netflix, what's it called? Netflix, what's it called? Not Party Chat. Is it Watch Party? Is that what it's called? I think it's called Watch Party. Is that the Netflix thing? Watch Party? Anyway, Netflix had this feature called Watch Party, I believe. And what it was that you and a bunch of other people could coordinate watching something on Netflix together at the same time. And we did that, I think, for Endgame. And I think, or did we do it for Infinity War? One of the two. And we did it for Spider-Man Homecoming. But it was a little bit glitchy. And it didn't really work all that well, but I did enjoy doing that. Like, not so I could do a reaction video, because I don't like doing reaction videos. I'll let other people do those. But it's just getting a bunch of people together to watch the movie together and chat. That was kind of fun. And I will look into doing stuff like that more in the future, because like I said, it was pretty fun. All right, Sam Philippi and Johnny Got Lost sending super chat badges in the live chat. Thank you for that, guys. Appreciate that. All right, next up. Rick Ganther writes, The hex does not have to be the thing that originates mutants in the MCU. My thinking is simply creates a mutant crisis. Many activated at once. This doesn't mean others can't have already existed. Introduction does not equal origin per se. But then that's not mutants. That's Inhumans. Like, remember, mutation isn't something that happened. Mutation isn't an event. Mutation is the next step in human evolution. Like, the whole notion of people have this dormant thing in them, and then something happens, and it brings that dormant thing in them to life. Well, that's more Inhumans, right? That's more like, that's just taking Terrigen gas and replacing it with Wanda's shield. And I like, to me, that's never how mutation was supposed to be, or the philosophy behind it. It was supposed to be a very natural next step in the evolution of humanity. And that causes friction, right? So, yeah, I'm still not there on that. I got to admit. I mean, that's not to say they can't go in that direction. They could, but I'm not. I don't really think that's what they're going to do. But they could. They could. We'll see. I just think it would be the wrong decision for them to make if they do. All right, Stubble McShave writes, concerning streaming series in the theaters, they could have a theatrical release of the season finales. An 8-episode series could show episodes 6, 7, and 8 at the same time. Episodes 6 and 7 would already have been on the streaming service for a week or two. Yeah, we were talking the other day about, somebody brought up the idea of, we've seen Game of Thrones put like a couple of season premieres in theaters. We were just talking about Inhumans. That was so bad. Inhumans makes Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. look like Game of Thrones. Anyway, we were just talking about Inhumans. Inhumans did their big release with a theatrical release, right? But then they put it on television. And so we were talking about, could Disney do something like that? Like maybe the day before an episode airs, you could have it for one night in theaters. Maybe, but there are also some problems that come along with that we talked about that. But maybe for season finales, that might not be a bad idea. Those could be pretty big events. There's still the other drawbacks, but that's actually not a bad idea, Stubble McShape. Because like, how great would it have been? Honestly, everybody, think about this. Think back to the Mandalorian finale, Mandalorian season 2 finale. It was great watching it in our homes. Yeah, that was cool. That was great. It was great. Imagine being in a theater. Now, obviously outside of a pandemic, okay? I'm talking outside of a pandemic. But imagine being in a theater with 150 other people. When the camera pans up, the hood comes down, and Luke Skywalker appears. Imagine being in that room when that happens. Oh my God, that would have been awesome. I mean, it was great just watching it at home. It was fantastic. But it would have been a whole nother level. So I don't know. Maybe you could be onto something there, Stubble. Maybe doing stuff like that for like season finales instead of like season openings. Maybe there's something to that. All right. Cam K writes, 1 of 3. It is not that complicated. Cap went back in time and started an alternate timeline, thus creating an alternate timeline where he lives his life with Peggy, albeit an alternate one. While on the side, knowing exactly who to talk to about going back to his original timeline, Hank, Howard, etc. Eventually, alternate Peggy passes and Cap mourns her, and then he finally comes back to the original timeline and attends the original Peggy's funeral to pay homage secretly, of course, as well as live in the rest of his life there until he can pass on the shield to the original Falcon. This even explains why he didn't return to that spot he left with the stones. That's great, Cam, except you're making all of that up, right? That's great. You could do it that way, but we could come up with 100 other things. I mean, I do it all the time. We can come up with 100 other theories about how this happened, this did this, but the reality is we're just making it up. That's not what the movie said happened. Right? Let's be clear. It's not what the movie said didn't happen at the same time. Like I'm sitting here telling you, well, yeah, but you're just making it up. That's not what the movie said. But the movie also didn't say that didn't happen. But again, it just keeps it all on the theoretical. It keeps it all on the theoretical. Look, I just keep coming back to that interview with the 2 screenwriters of Endgame. When asked about it, they said, yeah, not everything made sense. They just basically admitted it. Yeah, we had some plot holes. right? So we, after the fact, and we always do this as fans, after the fact, we can make up stuff in our head to try to fill in those plot holes. But I just really appreciated like the blunt honesty of the writers going, yeah, there were some plot holes. Yeah, there were some things that don't really add up. Those are there. Those are there. And I'm glad they were there because they equaled the experience that we ended up having, but I kind of liked it. Let's see. Now, like somebody like Rajan says, the Russos cleared it this week. Yeah, but they're saying that after the fact too. The fact of the matter is the people who wrote the script said, yeah, there were some inconsistencies. So yeah, now after the fact, the Russos can scramble and say, oh no, this is what happened. Okay, fine. You can say that now, but the writers had already admitted that when they did it, there were some inconsistencies and plot holes, specifically when asked about the Captain America thing. So I just think that's interesting. I think that it makes it more relatable when we understand that even these incredible creators who make these amazing stories, even they can't button up every button. And even they, when they create it and put it out, even they aren't infallible. And it ended up being a really enjoyable experience. But anyway, that's just kind of my perspective on it. Anyway, Casey McNatt writes, if Wanda's main saying at the end of this show is no more Avengers, how would that explain why Spider-Man is still there? Pretty sure in Infinity War, Tony said that Spider-Man was an honorary Avenger. So, wait a second. Pretty sure in Infinity War, Tony said Spider-Man was an honorary Avenger. Now, so I just don't think it would make sense. I don't think Tony said he was an honorary Avenger. I think Tony said you're an Avenger. I mean, unless I'm not remembering it right, which is possible. I'm still a little bit sleepy. I only had like 4.5 hours sleep. But I don't think he said you're an honorary Avenger. I think he said you're an Avenger. Well, remember this. I'm not saying she says no more Avengers at the end. I mean, I'm not saying that at all. I don't think that's what happens. But remember, from WandaVision to Spider-Man Far From Home, there is a 7-month gap. All I'm saying is if somebody does have the theory that at the end of WandaVision, Wanda says no more Avengers, there is still there's a 7-month gap there where that could be fixed and undone, right? Again, I'm not saying that I believe that theory, but I'm just saying if somebody does have that theory, there's still a 7-month gap that any discrepancies between the events of WandaVision and Spider-Man Far From Home, there are a 7-month gap that stories could be told that address those discrepancies. But again, let me be clear. I'm not saying that that's what happens. All right. Next up, John Campea writes, with Black Panther dusted away after Infinity War, it would be interesting to see a film/series explore who fills the role of the Black Panther in Wakanda during the 5 years until Endgame. Thoughts? Big fan, bring on the filthy. Well, I mean, there's two interesting things about that. Number one, I mean, it would seem logical that after T'Challa disappeared, the person to take on both role of King and Black Panther is M'Baku, right? M'Baku has the most legitimate claim to the throne. He came this close to fairly defeating T'Challa to take the throne. He has ruled the Jambari tribe however long he's ruled it. He is an experienced ruler. He understands the tradition of Wakanda. He is the mightiest warrior they have, all that kind of stuff. It would make sense that M'Baku would be that person. The second interesting thing, though, and I don't know that M'Baku was it. I'm just saying that that's the one that makes sense. But the second interesting thing, though, is this. Don't forget, at the end of Black Panther, there's no more heart-shaped herb, right? The herb's gone. There are none left, at least as of the ending of Black Panther. So whoever became king and whoever took on the mantle of Black Panther as the protector of Wakanda, they had to do it without the powers that the heart-shaped herb gave them, right? Unless they say, oh, no, they found a secret stash. Well, maybe they did. They could do that too. But I find those two things very interesting. And I think now that we know that they are going to be doing a Wakandan series for Disney Plus, I fully expect we're going to have what happened in Wakanda during those 5 years fully addressed. I think we're going to have that fully addressed. So it's a great question, man. All right, next up. Casey McNatt writes, I think releasing Disney Plus shows week to week is better just because it gives us things to speculate, talk about from week to week. If they release WandaVision all episodes at once, I bet you would not have much to talk about, especially with all movie studios moving their films to the latter part of this year. Well, listen, we went from March to December without any Disney Plus shows, without any movies. So we'd still be here. But no, as fans, week to week, even though I'm a binger. I like to binge. When an episode ends, I want to be able to load up the next episode right away. I admit that. But for fandom, the week to week thing is way better. Like, we would have been done talking about WandaVision by now. If WandaVision dropped all the episodes at once, everybody would talk about it for a week, and then nobody would be talking about it. And it never would have become the number one show in the world. But people talk about it, we buzz about it, we speculate, we geek out, and then we get to do it all again the next week. So, yeah, I think it's clear. There's no more debate. The smart thing to do, if you have a great show, this doesn't help if you're not a great show, but if you have a great show, the week-to-week release thing is obviously the best thing to do for it. All right, next up. Preston the Kryptonian writes, so now that Zack Snyder's Justice League is officially coming out, will this be looked at as Joss Whedon being thrown under the bus? Do you think he feels that way? Just thought of it recently and would like to hear your thoughts. I mean, I don't know. Listen, Joss Whedon's got other problems he's dealing with right now. The how do people look at Joss Whedon's Justice League is the least of Joss Whedon's worries right now. Let's just leave it at that. But I mean, he shouldn't. He wouldn't have any right to. I mean, the reality is this. Even the Justice League theatrical release, go look it up. Who's the director of the Justice League theatrical release? Go look it up. Zack Snyder. So, I mean, Joss Whedon, as the guy who came in to fill in for the original director, even without all the other problems he's got going on in his life, he would have no right to feel thrown under the bus because it was originally Zack Snyder's film anyway. So, and listen, Joss Whedon knows exactly what he was brought in for. He was brought in not to create Justice League. He was brought in to fix what the Warner Brothers executives thought was broken. They brought him in. They gave him a bunch of rules. Take this out, take this out, take this out, take this out, and cut enough stuff out to keep it to 2 hours. We're not letting you make it longer than 2 hours. And you get no extra time to make these changes. You still have the original deadline. You have to make all these changes, do all these changes that we want, keep it to 2 hours, and do all of it without having an extra single day of time to do it. I mean, so Joss Whedon's got to know it was never really his movie in the first place. What he was able to pull off under those circumstances is amazing. What he was able to pull off under those circumstances. But he knows it was somebody else's movie originally. He would have no right to feel that way otherwise. If that other guy gets to come back and finish it the way he wanted to finish it, then he should feel fine about that. But again, right now, that's the least of Joss Whedon's worries. All right. Let's see. Casey McNatt writes, where are we at? Casey McNatt writes, 1 of 2. Going back to my earlier point about something we can debate about, who actually are the Avengers right now? Tony and Cap and Natasha are gone. Hawkeye left to be with his family, and his family. Moore and Hulk and Thor seem to be the only members of the original Avengers left. So who exactly can you say is an Avenger at this time? Black Panther, maybe Doctor Strange, Spider-Man. Don't forget War Machine as well. War Machine is there. What are your thoughts? Yeah, listen, there are still people there available, right? Now, whether they are calling themselves the Avengers at this point or not, I'm not sure. But again, Thor is out there just because, I mean, Thor always was sometimes on Earth, sometimes not on Earth, whatever. So he's considered an Avenger. Hulk is still there. I mean, he fought in the final battle of Endgame. His arm's probably healed by now, I would think. Or maybe not because it was Infinity Stone damage. We'll see. You've got War Machine there. You've got Doctor Strange there. You've got Spider-Man there. You've got, I mean, there's enough there that they could say they recognize the Avengers as being this group of people right now. So they're there. But whether or not they are recognizing a group of Avengers at this point in time, I'm not really clear about that. Although, you know, Agnes does say, you're with the Avengers. So maybe the Avengers are still a thing at that point. Maybe. We'll see. They haven't given us a lot of information on that yet. All right. Aaron Schrader writes, maybe the mutant population has been relatively small this whole time and better able to conceal themselves, but in whatever movie that introduces the X-Men, something will happen to activate a large number of potential mutants, making hiding impossible. Again, that is something they could do, but I think it would be bullshit if they did. That totally violates the whole idea about what mutants are, to me, personally. But remember, I say that, I whine and bitch about that, but I also acknowledge that there's no perfect way for them to bring mutants in. There's no perfect way to do it. And whichever way Kevin Feige ultimately decides on to do it, there's going to be problems. Because I can't come up with any way that's perfect, that doesn't come along with some problems. You can't come along with anything. I don't think Kevin Feige can either. So I think Kevin Feige is just in a situation where he's going to have to make the best call he can and understand that whatever call he makes as far as how they're going to bring mutants into the universe, and I don't think it'll have anything to do with WandaVision, but whatever way he decides to bring mutants into the MCU, there are going to be advantages and there are going to be problems and disadvantages of the way he chooses. But that's the way it is. There's no perfect solution here. So I can whine and bitch and moan and complain and cry that, well, if you do it that way, that betrays the spirit of the... Yeah, I could say that, but if he chooses another way to do it, somebody else could whine and bitch and moan and complain about the problems that that way solves, and so on and so forth. So I will sit here and whine and bitch and moan and complain and cry about all the wrong ways to bring back the X-Men, but the reality is there is no true one correct way. And Kevin Feige is just going to have to make the best decision he can. And then all of us armchair quarterbacks, Monday morning quarterbacks like me, we can whine and crap and complain and cry about the drawbacks of the way he chose. But at the end of the day, the reality is whatever way he chooses to do it, there's going to be drawbacks. And he's just going to have to pick the one that works best for the universe. And if there's anybody I trust with that decision, it's Kevin Feige. But it won't stop us as fans from whining and bitching and moaning and complaining, because that's what we do. Me included. That's what we do. All right. Anyway, next up, AV Callie writes, hey, John, out of curiosity, do you remember some of the usernames that write to you? I do. I can't, obviously there are a lot and I can't remember all of them, but yeah, I often will recognize names that come in. Also, I think we need to be careful of what we are expecting with WandaVision. I think we are setting ours a Star Wars The Last Jedi, LOL. I think the engineer is Adam Brashear. Well, you know what? I mentioned that on last night's pregame show. I mentioned 4 people. I don't think it's likely that it's any of them, but I think these are, of the unlikely, the ones with the best chance of it being. But they're all unlikely. I don't necessarily think it's going to be any of them. And the 4 that I said may end up being the engineer are... I mentioned Quentin Beck, of course, Mysterio from Spider-Man. Remember, this happened 7 months before the events of Spider-Man Far From Home, so he's still out there, and he's an engineer, and he's brilliant, and he's Jake Gyllenhaal, and it would check a lot of boxes. I'm not saying it would be him, but I'm saying that's a possibility. I said Reed Richards is one of the possibilities. I said Justin Hammer was one of the possibilities, and the 4th one I said was Adam Brashear, also known as Blue Marvel in the comic books. Now, in the comic books, Adam Brashear happens to be an engineer. Granted, in the comic books, he's an electrical engineer, which is different from an aerospace engineer, but they can just make that one change. Easy. Also in the comic books, Adam Brashear and Monica Rambeau dated. So there's a connection there. Now, again, I'm not saying that means we're going to see Adam Brashear at some point in WandaVision. I'm not saying that, but I'm just saying he was one of the 4 that I put forward as possibilities. So there was that. So I see where you're coming from on that, AV. All right. Jake Wiley writes, 1 of 2. Hey, John, huge fan and longtime listener of the show. Thank you so much, Jake. I appreciate that. Keep up the fantastic work. I don't know if you saw, but Junkie XL released the first track from the upcoming Snyder Cut, and man, it does sound awesome and captures the ambiance of the Snyderverse. Better than Elfman's score, in my opinion, as much as I love Elfman. I wanted to ask if you could share your thoughts on the importance of scores in movies and give us some of your favorites. Thanks, and keep up the great work. Well, I'm not going to do an entire essay right now on the importance of scores, but listen, a great musical score is very much like visual effects. Sometimes they stand out and wow us. Sometimes, if they really do their job, we don't even notice them there. Like, really good visual effects in some scenes are the effects that we don't even know are visual effects. And they just bleed into the background and we don't even notice them because they're doing their job. I think a good score is like that. Sometimes a score, like a big visual effect, is meant to stand out and grab our attention. Like when we hear John Williams's, that classic horn start off as the sun is rising and Superman's starting to fly, and we hear bum, 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 bum. Like that is like right there, front and center, and it stirs our emotions. But sometimes what a score is supposed to do is bleed into the background. And if it's doing its job right to accent and highlight what is supposed to be happening in the scene, we won't even notice it. And so a lot of people look at me funny when I say I sometimes compare a good soundtrack to a good visual effects in a movie. Sometimes they stand out and grab us by the throat. Sometimes they're meant to bleed into the background. We're not even supposed to notice it if it's doing its job right. Some of my favorites, I mean, obviously anything by John Williams, Star Wars, obviously. The soundtrack to Black Panther. I'm not talking, sorry, the score to Black Panther. I'm not even talking about the soundtrack, right? By, who was it who did the soundtrack? Kendrick Lamar. I'm not even talking about the soundtrack that I'm talking about the score by the same guy who did the score for Mandalorian. I love the soundtrack in that. Anything Jurassic Park, the Lord of the Rings score is amazing. You know, a lot of things like that. So those are some of the ones that stand out to me, Jake. All right, next up. Some dude writes, you seem convinced Netflix will convert week to week over the next couple of years. I am pretty convinced of that. Even though it's a better model, wouldn't all of their users be annoyed since they already conditioned to their binge model? Is Netflix not changing because of the potential negative feedback? No. You know why? Negative feedback goes away. Look, if you're going to be good in business and you're going to be good at anything, you got to recognize when it's time to make a change. And change can sometimes be jarring. Change can sometimes be uncomfortable. Change can sometimes be a little, leave you a bit discombobulated. Yeah, change is a bit uncomfortable. It is. I mean, I often compare it to, think of a baby when they're teething, when teeth are trying to push their way out through the skin of their gums and all that kind of stuff. It's uncomfortable for the little demon spawn, right? Change can be uncomfortable, but change is absolutely necessary. Look, let me ask you this question. If you're the head of Netflix, what's the worst thing to you? Either A, going through a period of 2 or 3 months of your user base, some of your user base complaining that you're not dropping your seasons all at once, and there's a couple of months of that until they get used to it. Or 2, over the course of years, you fall further and further behind because all the other streaming services are realizing, look at all the momentum and viewership and everything that builds by doing week to week. Which is the worst scenario? Well, the long-term damage is the worst scenario. There being some pushback and backlash about about a one-time move, that comes and goes. It dissipates. You can never be, you are a bad leader if you don't recognize that the short-term discomfort is far preferable to long-term failure. Short-term discomfort is much preferable to long-term failure. And so I agree. Yeah, when they make the switch, and it's not about to happen this month, and it's not about to happen this year, it may not even happen in 2022, but we know they're already talking about it, and we know they're already getting ready to start experimenting with it. I think by the end of 2023, you're going to see them, at least half of their shows are going to be on a week-to-week thing. And all of the statistics and analytics are showing that's the right thing to do. That builds momentum for your shows. That builds popularity for your shows. It builds hype for your shows, and it builds audience for your shows. WandaVision went from being the number 35 show in the world to number 1 in 5 weeks. Think about that. So, yeah, you're right. There would be a little bit of pushback at first. Absolutely there would be. You got to expect that. But if you ever want to make changes that are going to move you forward, just even think about your career. You know, it'd be great for my career if I went back to school. Okay, that's a big change. That's an uncomfortable change. That's an expensive change. It's going to cost you money. It's going to cost you time. It's going to be awkward as hell. It's going to be whatever. But guess what? You know, in the long run, if I go and get that degree, it will help me in my particular career, whatever it is. And maybe for somebody else, it's a different change. Like, you know what? If I really want to pursue this career, I need to move to Iowa. Iowa is where the center of what I want to be involved in is at. That creates an uncomfortable situation. You got to uproot. You got to move away from your friends. You got to try to find a place to live, get acclimated to an entire new place. Yes, but you do so because you know that's the price tag for the success that you want to have moving forward. Change is the price tag for the success you want to have moving forward. And that's key and that's important. And so, yeah, I agree. It's not going to be fun for them. It's not going to be great. There will be some backlash. It'll be with all that. But unless you're willing to make those changes and things like that, you stagnate and you die. You stagnate and you die. All right. Next up, we've got Roll of the Egg. I don't know why I love that name so much. That name to me sounds really, really fun. Okay. Roll of the Egg writes, "Hey, John and Co. One more WandaVision comment about mutants. Kidding. I do want to recommend The Unicorn. Walton Goggins' comic timing is fantastic. The whole ensemble cast has great chemistry, each in their own lane. His daughters are great young actresses. I'll tell you what. I don't know how many of you guys watch The Unicorn, but I love Walton Goggins. And there are 2 guys in The Unicorn who were also co-stars in Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson's show Ballers. And I liked Ballers. So they had 2 guys from Ballers in it. It's got Walton Goggins in it. I love the premise. The premise of the show is really cool about this really good man who's a widower now trying to get out there and date again. And so I talked my wife, Ann, into trying to watch. I talked my wife, Ann, into watching the show with me. Say, let's sit down and watch the show. This show is a lot. Some people I hear talk really good about The Unicorn. Let's sit down and watch it. And we hated it. I thought it was terrible. And I love everybody involved with it. And again, Roll the Egg. I'm not trying to yuck on your yum. If you like it, awesome. I know I've got some friends of mine that absolutely love that show. And I wanted to love it because I love, like I said, I love the players involved, but I tried, man. I tried. I did one episode and I thought I can't watch anymore. Then I thought, you know what? Do one more episode, Campea. Do one more episode. And then I did one more episode and I couldn't get through it. I couldn't get through it. So that was that. But I'm glad you liked it, man. Because like I said, and you're in good company. I know some people who really, really like that show too. And I'm glad you enjoy it. All right. Next up. We've got Ambassador Spock writes, "Hey, John, piggybacking a bit, a viewer wrote about Quentin Beck being the engineer. That might tie to Far From Home pre-scene where Fury and Hill show up in Mexico City and meet Black where he tells them, 'You shouldn't be here. Love your sweatshirts.'" Oh, well, thank you so much, man. I appreciate that. Yeah, remember, one of the big problems that I always had with Spider-Man Far From Home was that Quentin Beck was a known employee of Tony Stark. There are records of him. There are photos of him. How Nick Fury never figured out, no, granted, it wasn't actually Nick Fury, it was Talos, but still, how these people couldn't figure out, oh, wait a minute, this guy who says he's from another dimension looks exactly like this dude who had a high position at Tony Stark Industries. Maybe it's the same guy. Like, nobody stopped once to question that. Nobody stopped once to question that. And that's always been a thing to me. But we'll see where they go from there. All right, next up. Ambassador Spock writes, by the by, glad to see your guardian angel and Cavill Superman in the background. I don't know if you can still see. If you look right, hold on a second, right there. See that one little thing right there? That's just the tip of his cape is right there. Yes, I still have, of course, I can't have my new studio without having my Henry Cavill Superman standing in the back. Of course, he's got to sit there. Keeping constant vigil, keeping constant vigil over the studio, keeping everything safe. Of course, I got to have my Henry Cavill Superman standing back there. Of course I do. Next up. Where are we at? That was Ambassador Spock. Next up, Willow writes, I started out with none interest in Cruella, so the new trailer did do a good job in making me now somewhat intrigued in the film. I do really hope, though, that they make her a real villain instead of taking the Maleficent route. I agree. And first of all, I'm just like you, Willow. I was at D23. Don't get me wrong, I didn't think Cruella looked bad. I'm not saying I thought Cruella looked bad. I just didn't have any interest. And then that trailer came out. Now, look, it didn't do the same thing that the Godzilla vs. Kong trailer did for me. I thought that was the best trailer I've seen in like 2 years. But it definitely got me interested in Cruella. I thought that was a very good trailer. And yes, the thing I really hated about Maleficent, and there are good things about Maleficent, but one of the things that I really didn't like was they keep you promoting it. Oh, let's tell the story of this villain, Maleficent. But she wasn't a villain. They just made her a misunderstood good guy. But this trailer really it doesn't feel to me like Cruella's going to be the anti-hero. It really does feel like they're going to show her to be the bad, bad woman she is. That's what it feels like. Because I will be as disappointed as you will if they turn out just making her like Maleficent, if they just make her a misunderstood good guy. I think they're going to make her out to be a bad, bad woman. So we'll see where they go with that. Let's see. What's next? War Doctor 10 writes, hey, John and crew. If Hank McCoy does end up on WandaVision, what is the likelihood that it's him pre-transformation? Thanks and keep up the great work. Well, again, I think any X-Men character coming in is very unlikely. And again, I'm not going to get into anything about episode 7. We'll save that for the spoiler discussion later today at 2:00. But yes, I think if Hank McCoy shows up, I think it would very much be in human form. But then again, remember, I don't think X-Men characters are coming into this. I could be wrong. We'll find out. But I think if Hank McCoy comes in, and that's a big theoretical, but if Hank McCoy comes in, my guess, he shows up in human form. All right, Connor writes, who had the best single tier scene? The Next Generation, Best of Both Worlds, Get Out, or WandaVision? Or are there any other movies or shows that touch on being a mindless drone? That shit is creepy and honestly a super horrific concept. Well, I think the one in WandaVision of the woman kind of doing and the one tier, that was powerful. But I think the Get Out one is one that kicks you right in the face. I think the one in Get Out, and I think it was Daniel Kaluuya sitting there and like just all of a sudden with that look on his face, that one to me was huge. And you're right, Connor, it is a really effective, it's a very effective visual tool. The stone face, single tier, very effective if you use it right. And those are all good examples of them using it right. Ethan Hunt writes, hey, John, I was curious about your opinion on this. Why are normal, long-term, healthy romantic relationships rarely portrayed well in films /TV /novels? I can't imagine it being hard to write for pro writers. Is there a reason it's so rare, or is it just how it is? Well, here's why. Here's my theory on that, Ethan. It's a great question. I bring this up because there are a series of movies called To All the Boys I Loved Before. Let me just look that up here. To All the Boys I Loved Before. Yes. Okay. And I'll see, for those of you who don't know what I'm talking about, I'll see if I can bring it up. Why is this thing jumping all over the place? God, I hate Google sometimes. Okay, so To All the Girls I've Loved, or To All the Boys I've Loved Before, right? It's an interesting thing. Now, John, why are you bringing this up? I'll tell you why. So my wife, Ann, has gotten into these movies, and she watched all 3 in 3 days. So if I'm ever in the living room, I'm ending up having to watch some of it. So I've seen about half of every single one of these movies, right? And here's the thing. In the first movie, it's about her and this guy getting together. Okay, and of course they have some rocky stuff. Boy meets girl, boy loses girl, boy gets girl back, right? Standard stuff. And then in the second one, I'm just coming in and out now, and I'm like, I'm seeing her kissing another guy. I'm seeing our lead girl kissing another guy. I'm like, oh, so she's not worth that guy anymore. No, they're going through some drama. Okay. And then I walk out of the room. I come back in about 20 minutes later, and now she's back with the original boyfriend. I'm like, they're back together now? Yeah, they realize they still love each other. Okay, great. I leave the room. I come back about 15 minutes later, and she's talking to a girlfriend about her and her guy had to break up. I'm like, really? They're still having drama? Yeah. And then, of course, at the end of the movie, they're back together. Then the next day, Anne's watching the third movie, and now she's struggling with whether I think she's thinking about moving to New York. I couldn't piece the whole thing together. And it's like, the whole thing is about, like, you'd think at the end of the first movie, they get together, great, done. But no, it's about, oh, everything sucks because people are stupid, particularly people under 22. Now, people under 22, listen, I know because I look back to when I was under 20. I think there's a magical line at 22. I don't know why. Everything sub 22, absolute moron. After 22, still pretty stupid, but we're a little bit smarter. Because I look back at myself under 22, it's like, wow, absolute moron. I look at everybody I know under 22, completely dumb. So I'm like, okay, maybe these people, like, these are kids, they're under 22, they're stupid, whatever. But you're right. Everything. And Sam Wright is saying, wow, John, thanks. I'm 19. Hey, don't worry, dude. I was 19 once, and I was a total moron. So don't worry about it. I still am to a degree. But the point is, one of my dearest friends, who I actually haven't talked to in years, just because life is busy, still up in Canada. But one of my dearest friends is a Christian minister. He's like the pastor of one of the biggest churches in Canada. His name's Bruxy Cavey is his name. Wonderful, wonderful dude. We were roommates for a while. Great guy. Love him. But he said something once that's really interesting. Because my friend Bruxy is a pacifist. He's a pacifist. But there isn't anybody you will find who loves a lot of violence in his movies. He loves total violence in movies. Loves his violence in movies, right? Loves action films, loves all those sorts of things, right? And, you know, and I remember talking to him about him once. It's like, do you ever feel conflicted about that fact that you are very much a very hardcore pacifist, but you love it? He goes, no. There's two things. Number one, movies are make-believe. They're fairy tales. They're make-believe. It's not real. But he said, the other thing is, have you ever tried to watch a movie? This is my friend said to me. He goes, you ever try to watch a movie without violence? Yeah, that's really boring. Have you ever tried to watch a movie without violence? Yeah, that's really boring. Now, I don't necessarily agree with him in totality, right? King's Speech. There's no violence in King's Speech, and I love that movie. It's not. But the point is this. We watch movie. Every movie needs to have conflict. Every movie needs conflict. Whether it's physical conflict, emotional conflict, self-conflict, whether it's man versus man versus nature, man versus time, whatever, every movie and every story needs conflict. It is the conflict that becomes the driving force of any narrative in any story. Whether it's a man struggling with his own inner demons, whether it's a man struggling with another person, whether it's a man struggle against the elements, like a Castaway, right? Like take Castaway. That the conflict there was between Tom Hanks and the elements and his situation. But the point is, every story at the heart of it is, what is your central conflict? And so a lot of times, because it would be very boring, right, to watch a show. Let's say you wanted to watch a show about the life of John and Ann Campea. Okay, it's going to be a really boring show. You're going to see us get up. You're going to see us hug. You're going to see us have some breakfast together. You're going to see us go for a walk with our dogs. You're going to see us each working. And then you're going to see us each cuddling on the couch to watch something on TV. You're going to see us drive over to her mom's. You're going to see us go pick up some Wendy's drive-thru. And then you're going to see us come home, maybe watch WandaVision, and go to bed. That's a pretty damn boring thing to watch. So that principle that all the narrative stories at the center, there's got to be conflict. Watching a perfectly healthy long-term relationship in a TV show or movie would probably be kind of boring. I'm just saying, would probably be kind of boring. Not much there to watch. So that's why I think it's not a matter, and I know I'm going on long about this, but this is one that really sticks out to me. It's not a matter that writers aren't good enough to write healthy, long-term, stable, non-drama relationships. It's just who wants to watch something with healthy, long-term, stable relationships? We want to see the conflict. That's what creates the drama, right? And so it's some things are great in real life. Some things are great in movies and TV. That's just my thought on that. Anyway. Okay, let's move on. Sorry I went on so long about that. Next up, we've got Garden Variety Vagabond who writes, Garden Variety, by the way, again, we're seeing people send in super chats. If guys don't use super chat, we don't address super chats here on the John Campea Show because now they're going to be answered over in the WandaVision spoiler thing. Please use the tip link in the description of the video below. All right. Garden Variety Vagabond writes, John, listening to your discussion on the X gene as born or afflicted by a virus would compare to the difference between being born with a sexuality versus becoming HIV positive. Huh? The difference between being born with a sexuality versus becoming HIV positive. I don't understand the relationship between the two at all. I don't understand what your comparison there is, Garden Variety. I'm sure you have a point there that I'm just kind of missing, but I don't know what it is you're trying to suggest there. All right, anyway, Garden Variety also goes on and writes, 1 of 2. John, did you see the news that the Bridgerton star Renee Jean Page has been cast to star as / a lead in the upcoming Dungeons and Dragons movie, joining Chris Pine and Michelle Rodriguez? I did not see that, as a matter of fact. He was recently nominated for a SAG award. Netflix has stated that Bridgerton has become its biggest series ever. Do you feel that the overall cast will bring more eyeballs to the movie? It needs to overcome a certain predisposed negativity from some due to the last Dungeons and Dragons movie attempt. Well, here's the good thing. And by the way, no, I hadn't heard that this guy, Roger Jean Page, I don't know how you say Roger's first name, sounds French-Canadian to me, but maybe he's just French. I have not heard the news, to be honest with you. I didn't pick up on that story that he's been cast in that Dungeons and Dragons. This is a growing cast, man. Chris Pine, him, Michelle Rodriguez, the kid from the Pikachu movie that I like him. This is a growing cast. Now, the good thing, what this Dungeons and Dragons movie has going in its favor is that old piece of garbage Dungeons and Dragons movie was so long ago. Like, let me look it up. Dungeons and Dragons movie release date. Let me just see when that was. It was a while ago. It was 20 years ago. Dear heavens, that was 20 years ago? That was 20 years ago. Wow. I mean, I knew it was a long time ago. I didn't realize it was that long ago. I didn't realize it was that long ago. Come on. Seriously? Release date. Hold on a second. Let me go to IMDb. Let me see if I can bring up the page. Well, let me just bring this up here. Yeah, for those of you who may not remember this all-time classic movie. Oh my God, this was bad. You guys know too. I just knocked over my drink. That's horrible that I just did that. That's all right. There wasn't much left. You guys remember this, even though it had the incomparable Jeremy Irons in it. This movie was so bad. So bad. But again, like I was just saying, the advantage that this movie has is that it came out 20 years ago. Right? So a lot of people don't even remember it. A lot of people don't even remember this movie. And that's a good thing. That works in their favor right now. That works to their advantage. There's no memory of this thing. It's kind of disappeared from most people's radars, so that's a good thing. Will the name recognition, I mean, I don't know. Like right now, Bridgerton is the big hot thing right now, right? Bridgerton is the big hot thing. That's the big hot news. And I know my wife binged the crap out of that thing. That was one of those shows that I would walk in once in a while. It's like, oh, there's more naked people. You go, naked people. Right? But I still don't really understand the gist of the show. But I'm kind of a sucker for period piece things. I mean, it's funny because you'd think that would actually kind of be maybe a show I would watch because I do like that period piece kind of stuff. But anyway, apparently a lot of filthy in Bridgerton. But listen, that's like the hottest show in the world right now. You attach, other than WandaVision, you attach the name of the star of that to something like Dungeons and Dragons. It can work in his favor. All right, next up. I am looking forward to that just because I'm a big Dungeons and Dragons guy. Justin Ward writes, since Disney owns Fox content and X-Men, what do you think of Pietro from Days of Future Past in WandaVision actually being Mystique or Morph? Maybe they're a spy eventually to convert Wanda to the Brotherhood, Pietro's dad, Magneto's team of Avengers enemies. I don't, because I don't believe that we're getting into any X-Men stuff at all. Now, again, I could end up being wrong about that. I mean, that's the great thing about these shows. We develop theories, then they give us new information in new episodes, and we change our theories. Then we develop new theories. Some of them turn out to be right. Some of them turn out to be wrong. That's the fun of it. So I could be wrong about that. But since Justin, I still take Kevin Feige at his word. He said no X-Men stuff, nothing like that for 5 years. That was 3 years ago. So for now, I still take him at his word. And if new information comes along that makes us change our minds, we'll change our minds. But I don't think that's very likely because right now I still don't believe they're actually going to bring in any X-Men stuff yet. But we'll find out. 2 more episodes of WandaVision left after last night. Once again, guys, if you didn't hear me talking about it before, Ann and I will be doing, I will have to start solo, but Ann will come in and join me afterwards. We're going to be doing our WandaVision Season 1, Episode 7 spoiler review today at 2 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. 2 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. So make sure you guys come and join us for there. And that's when we'll go into all the WandaVision spoiler stuff. So make sure you guys come and join us for that. All right, let's keep on moving here. Next up. Am I at Homelander's Doppelganger? Yes. Homelander's Doppelganger writes, hey, John. I think Agnes is pretending to be scared of Wanda to keep the people of Westview scared of her and make them think she's just think she's the one fully in control. But I do think Agnes is scared of whoever else is in control. Just a thought. Okay. And then a little bit of Mr. Kim. Okay. See you. I'm not, again, this is the weird situation, Homelander, that we find ourselves in on Friday's show is I have now seen episode 7. I don't want to go into the details of episode 7. So I'm just going to look at your question and go, okay, interesting. And then not say anything else. I'll just say interesting. And then not say anything else right now. Because you know why I can't. You know why I can't, right? So there's that. All right. Ryan Lohner writes, I'm guessing the post-credit scene for Cruella is someone telling her they found someone with a bunch of Dalmatians. Close up as she turns around and says, how many? Well, I'm going to guess probably not, but I did think it was good that in the Cruella trailer, they did show us a shot of a bunch of Dalmatians growling at her. I thought that was pretty slick. And I do think we are going to find out in Cruella, we're going to see the formation of her hatred for Dalmatians and dogs. I think we will see that. But I am not expecting, Ryan, to see a post-credit scene in Cruella. I'm not expecting to see that. All right, some dude writes, Scorsese, cinema should not be called content. It's film, and film is an art form. Also, Scorsese, Marvel movies aren't cinema. They're theme parks. Yeah, I know. Listen, I think when you really listen to everything that Marty Scorsese was saying and what his entire rationale was about saying that Marvel films aren't really cinema, they're more, what did he call them? He called them something else. There's something else, but they're not cinema. It's when you hear him explain why, I see where he's coming from and I understand the distinction he's trying to make. I disagree with him, but you see where he's coming from. But that doesn't discount the other point he's making. Now, again, I have not read this article that we're all talking about yet. I haven't had a chance to read that yet. But don't start thinking that Marty Scorsese is some guy who doesn't know what he's talking about. Don't make that mistake. And don't make the mistake of, oh, he says something here I disagree with. Well, let's point out something else he did before that we disagree with. I just think we got to be careful about that. Don't discount something that a guy as brilliant as Martin Scorsese, who's made better movies than any of us will ever make in our lives, and makes better movies than most people who are involved in Hollywood today will ever make. Now, again, I disagree with him. I thought that was a ridiculous thing he said about the Marvel things before, but that notwithstanding, let's not put ourselves in the unwise position where we just jump up to disagree with or critique something one of the most brilliant cinematic minds of all time might have to say, just because we disagreed about one thing. Now, again, I haven't read the latest article. I may think it's an absolute joke if I read it, but again, I haven't read it, so I can't really comment on it too much. All right. Next up, an anonymous viewer writes, 1 of 3. I still think Pietro is Fox X-Men. If he was a Mephisto, why would that Pietro be chosen? Can Mephisto see into the multiverse but not open? Wants Wanda to? The more simple motivation for Mephisto is, like you said, I snack on your magic to survive. This is Avenger level event. If they're here and wanted to figure out what's going on, I know the spell to break the spell, they'd send someone in who can't be mind wiped. Someone with similar genetics. Doctor Strange could then pull Pietro from Fox, so Pietro wouldn't be nice to Wanda. Doesn't know her, just sees her a villain, and his job is to get info. That would explain the alarm in episode 5 when he entered the barrier. He's an outsider. Mephisto would already be inside and not trigger alarms. All right. So, this again, anonymous. I'm trying to explain why I disagree without making any reference to episode 7. Why I disagree without making any reference to episode 7. Well, again, look, you know my thoughts. Kevin Feige had stated, and maybe he lied, maybe he changed his mind, but Kevin Feige had stated there's not going to be any X-Men stuff until the 5-year thing is done. But there are other reasons why. Then there are events in episode 7, and I can't really go into them. So, Anonymous, what I'm going to do is I'm not going to try to refute what you're saying. I'm just going to let your theory there, and you've obviously thought this out very well, Anas. You thought this well, and you expressed it very, very well. So good job on that. But I'll let that sit there for other people to look at and make their decisions about. I'll let that sit there and let other people make their decisions about that. All right. Frankie Gouge writes, last pulled out of my ass theory. Number 1, WandaVision will cause a Terrigen effect, rebooting Inhumans. See Kamala Khan, who happens to live in New Jersey, not introduce mutants. Out of my ass theory number 2, mutants are getting wiped out in the Fox universe. I don't know what that means. Pull the faves out through the multiverse to save them, get to keep their backstory since similar universe, and help with the new mutants in this universe. I don't believe that at all. 3 of 3. Finally, score a PS5 tonight. Trying since they dropped in November. Don't know why no new games I want for a while. Although I have an Xbox Series S on the way because I own every console. If one has a decent PC, really, why buy an Xbox Series X or S? All right, so let's go through these things one at a time. Could they be rebooting Inhumans? Maybe. Kamala Khan does become Miss Marvel as a result of being exposed to Terrigen gas. And of course, it turns out she's an Inhuman. These are Inhuman abilities, but I don't think Kevin Feige, I mean, I could be wrong. I don't know this. I'm just guessing. I don't think Kevin Feige wants to have anything to do with the Inhumans. I don't think he wants the stench of Inhumans to come within 1,000 feet of his MCU. So I'm not really sure about that. And just because Kamala Khan is an Inhuman in the comics doesn't mean they have to do it that way in the movies. Could be, though. Could be. Next up, cherry picking and pulling out certain characters from the Fox X-Men universe to bring them over. I think that's just messy. Kevin Feige seems to be the type of guy who likes a clean slate. He likes to do all of his own stuff. Clean slate. Like even when they were bringing Spider-Man into the MCU, no, we're not bringing in Andrew Garfield. We're going to clean slate. We want clean slate for our Spider-Man. That's going to be in the MCU. It just seems the way he likes to do things. But again, possible. I mean, maybe this is the Pietro from the Fox X-Men universe. Again, We'll talk about that a little bit more on our episode 7 spoiler review. 3 finally, Score PS5. Yeah, you know, I had a lot of people tell me that. So what those of you who don't know what Frankie is referring to, I put up a post on Twitter asking people, because, you know, I'm pretty much ready to buy my next console. And I asked people, do you think I should get the Xbox Series X or the PlayStation 5? And I put that up on Twitter and had like 8,000 people vote. And I thought the results would be fairly close. Like, I thought it would be like 50-50. But it was like almost 80% of you said PlayStation 5. And then some people brought up a really good point. They said, John, with Xbox Game Pass, you can just play all the Xbox games on your computer. Why buy an Xbox Series X? Get a PlayStation 5, have all the PlayStation, exclusives. And then if there are Xbox games you want to play them on your PC through Game Pass. And so I decided to take that advice, Frankie, and I am going to see if I can get my hands on a PS5. But yeah, they are damn out of stock everywhere. So my buddy Ryan, he's the friend of mine. You've seen some of my pictures that looks like Ben Affleck. My buddy Ryan managed to get a PS5. So I will try to get my hands on one. We will see. All right, guys, listen. We'll continue on with Bill Dozer here in just a second. I'm going to take a quick short break. I'm going to go refill my drink, give you guys a chance to talk amongst yourselves. Maybe you guys need to run and take a bathroom break, whatever. So hang tight, guys. I'm not going to be long. Don't go anywhere. I will be right back. All right, guys, and we are back. Thank you so much for your patience and indulgence as I took a little bit of a break there. All right, we still got about 25 minutes left here. Let's keep right on rolling. And we're going to pick things up here with Billdozer, MHK, who writes, "Hey, John. Continuing down the path of things that make you feel old, Rush's Moving Pictures, an obscure album by some mildly talented musicians and good Canadian kids, turned 40 years old last week. Over under 20% of viewers currently air Drumming Tom Sawyer, R.I.P. Neil." Well, yeah, I mean, first of all, I've never even heard of... Oh, sorry. I thought you were saying Rush's Moving Pictures was like the name of a band. They were called Rush's Moving Pictures. Rush's, the band Rush, Moving Pictures. An obscure... Okay, now I totally get what you're saying about that. Oh my God, that album's 40 years old? Holy crap. Yeah, Neil Peart, man. Neil Peart was pretty much universally acknowledged as like the greatest drummer of all time. I still remember in the Aqua Teen Hunger Force movie, I don't know how many of you guys remember or if you ever saw the Aqua Teen Hunger Force movie, but they actually had Neil Peart in it. They had Neil Peart in it. And I remember like Neil Peart had the power in his drum solos to like do miraculous things, including bringing the dead back to life. Neil, play the drum solo of life. And Neil Peart would play this drum solo and could bring the dead back. It was pretty much, I don't know if any of you guys remember Aqua Teen Hunger Force. I used to love Aqua Teen Hunger Force. Anyway. So yes, man, Billdozer, that does make you feel old, man. That does make you feel old. All right. Amanda Burns writes, have you considered that Vision might be the big bad of the show? Sword or Nightmare has switched the two. Wanda's consciousness is in Vision and someone else is controlling her body. Real Vision is dead, and that was done to steal the children. Well, remember, there were no children before, but again, I'm not even referencing episode 7. Don't forget, a little bit later at 2 p.m. Pacific Standard Time today, we will be doing our WandaVision spoiler discussion. Make sure you come and join us there. But I have always believed that this isn't actually Vision. I've said from the beginning. Now, I may end up being wrong about that. I mean, that's the great thing about this show. Like, theories get confirmed, theories get torn apart. But I have believed from the beginning that this is not the real Vision. And so if it's not the actual Vision, then that opens up to a lot of possibilities of what it could be. Now, I don't necessarily subscribe to that particular theory, but that becomes one of the theories, Amanda, that definitely does come into play. And so it's something we'll have to keep our eyes on. And again, we will talk about this a little bit more in our spoiler discussion later this afternoon on WandaVision episode 7. All right, next up, Loki Doki writes, we always talk about WandaVision episodes being too short, but what I specifically hate about it is when I'm so into it and I check the time left, and yes, there's still 15 minutes left, then bam, please stand by, pops up like 5 minutes later. Shit tricks me every single time. Yeah, man, I remember, like even last night, I went back this morning on my computer to revisit episode 7 from last night. And I moved the scroll line, the little scroll bar, to where I thought something was in the show. And I was like, it felt like it was only about 3/4 of the way through and it was already credits. I'm like, yeah. So not only are the episodes short, Loki Doki, but the credits take up so much of the time that it even comes, when you look to see how much time is left in the show, that still fools you. Because about 5 of those minutes left, or 6 of those minutes left, are still credits. So yes, that bothers me too, Loki Doki. It totally does. All right. Next up, Boris writes, hey, John. Although Marco Polo was pretty trash, the actor playing Shang Tsung was the villain in season 1. Oh, I didn't know that. And he was great. You should watch the fight between him and Tom Wu in the finale. Happy to see him playing another villain. Have a great day. Well, I never did watch Marco Polo. Like, I'm aware of the show, and I remember it got some buzz and people seemed to like it. It got some attention, but I never did watch that show. But I do know this. The actor playing Shang Tsung in this Mortal Kombat, he does remind me a lot of the actor who played him in the original Mortal Kombat. He's got that great, distinct face with those features. Looks awesome. So again, I am looking forward to that. But no, I never did watch Marco Polo, unfortunately. But thanks for the heads up on that, Boris. All right, next up. Suthius writes, Hey guys, let's continue the tradition of letting you know how long we followed you. For me, my wife and I just became parents. Congratulations, Suthius. Now we have 3 heathens, boys, with the oldest being 11 years old. You and your content are both great and entertaining. Well, thank you so much, Suthius. I appreciate it. And congrats on the family and having an 11-year-old. Ann and I don't have kids, but that sounds like amazing. So thank you so much for that, man. And thank you for being along with us for so long, Suthius. I appreciate that. All right, Suthius also writes, okay, let's sit back for this one. We know MCU is synonymous with fake deaths. Yes, they are. Gamora died for Soul Stone, but came back the very next movie. Now let's talk about the other person who died for the Soul Stone, Natasha. How likely will Feige bring her back? We know Black Widow takes place between Civil War and Infinity War. Current predominant theory is that Natasha switched places with Yelena Belova. If so, then that was Yelena that died for the Soul Stone, not Natasha. Natasha could still be alive. Well, look. Kevin Feige has already confirmed that there are going to be some big reveals in the Black Widow movie. That much we know. We know Yelena is going to appear in future MCU projects. She's already been confirmed for a couple. But what else could a big reveal in a prequel movie like WandaVision be? Could it be something that sheds new light on the Infinity War saga? Or could it, as you're not the first one to suggest it, Suthius, you're not alone, man. You're not alone. You're not crazy. Other people have also speculated, what if something happens in Black Widow that lays the groundwork for her coming back later? It's possible. This is, of course, the Marvel fake death universe. You'd be crazy not to think that definitely the idea that something happens in Black Widow that will set the stage, that we will change the way we view the events of Endgame, and thus opens a door for Black Widow to either A, return, or maybe was never gone really at all in the first place. I don't know. But we do know that there are some big reveals, and maybe they could be. And of course, I just assume everybody's coming back. Oh no, Black Widow died. Oh no, boo-hoo, she fell down the cliff. I don't believe for a second she's never coming back. Because Marvel has pulled fake death so much that characters' death scenes no longer have emotional impact because you just assume they're coming back. Because that's what Marvel does. That's what they do. And anyway, yeah, the amount of fake deaths they have pulled is, I've lost count. Loki's died 38 times, 39 times, 40 times, keeps coming back. Keeps coming back. Oh no, Gamora died. Oh, don't worry, she's back. Oh no, Thor died. Oh no, don't worry, Mjolnir's going to fly into his hand and he's alive. Oh no, Nick Fury died. Oh no, don't worry, Nick Fury's back. Oh, I don't want to go, Mr. Stark. I don't want to go. Don't worry, Spider-Man's about to be back, as well as everybody else who dies in the staff. Don't you worry about it. They'll be back. Quicksilver's the only guy who hasn't come back. And by the way, I still think Aaron Taylor Johnson is going to appear in WandaVision. By the way. And he's the only guy who stayed dead. He's the only main character who has stayed dead. But we'll find out. We'll find out soon. But yes, I wouldn't be surprised at all if we don't find out that in Black Widow, something is there that paves the way for Natasha to return. I wouldn't be surprised. All right, Mr. 47 writes, the real title for the Spidey sequel has been confirmed as Spider-Man 3 Quarantined at Home, #zooming with the homies. I'm down. That's a good one. I love seeing these Spider-Man when people meme out the Spider-Man. Spider-Man 3, Home for the Holidays. Spider-Man 3, Home. I like that one. Spider-Man 3, Quarantined at Home. I like it. All right, Hank Dunn writes. Let's see. Hank Dunn writes, when I said the other day I don't want Krasinski as Reed, I meant it as I don't see him as a good fit for the MCU and the other actors and actresses in the MCU. For the way the MCU is, someone like Bill Hader or Glenn Howerton would fit in better. Oh, I don't agree with that at all. I don't agree with that at all. John Krasinski, as an actor, you can fit in with anybody. I mean, nobody would have thought that Robert Downey Jr. and Benedict Cumberbatch would have good on-screen chemistry, but if you're good actors, you can make that happen. John Krasinski is a really good performer. I really like his Jack Ryan stuff on Amazon too, by the way. But John Krasinski is a good performer. The other actors in the MCU are good performers. They'd absolutely be able to make those characters fit. I think absolutely. So I see what you're saying, and thank you for specifying that, Hank. I appreciate you clarifying what it was, why you were saying you don't see him as a fit. I appreciate you clarifying that, but I really do disagree with you on that. I think he would fit in very, very well. As a matter of fact, I think he would fit in very well. I think him, not that I think he will be cast. I'm not saying that, but I'm saying theoretically, if he were cast, I think him and his wife would both fit in very, very well. But hey, we all have our different points of view on that. Thanks for clarifying, Hank. All right, next up. Sam Robinson writes, "Hey, John, just started watching your stuff. Thank you so much, Sam. I wanted to ask you to go into detail about why you dislike Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. I'm not going to spend an hour and a half going into detail why I like. Here's why I don't like it. Because it's shit. The stories are dumb. The character interactions are terrible. Everything, the forced logic holes and all of it's unbelievable. Anyway, about why you dislike Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. It's definitely not my favorite Daredevil, but I think it had its moments and good outweighs the bad. Love Ghost Rider in it. Oh, listen. There are moments of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. that I liked. There are definitely even entire episodes that I thought were really good. For example, I think it was their special 100th episode. I actually remember getting on social media and going, holy damn, that was actually really good. Like, I think there are little stretches here and there that are better than others. Like even the Star Wars prequels there, I could sit here and tell you I can give you a laundry list of things about the things in the prequels I liked. There are things in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. I like. Of course, Clark Gregg is amazing. Ming-Na Wen is fantastic. But honestly, for me, and again, it's all subjective, but for me, the dialogue was atrocious. The character dynamics were non-existent, except again, I think between Coulson, Ming-Na Wen and Clark Gregg. I thought their chemistry was good. I thought chemistry was non-existent. Dialogue was always a joke. I just thought it felt too pathetic. So many times about like, oh, remember guys, we're part of the MCU. Listen to how many times we can name drop Iron Man. Oh, listen to how many times we can name drop Thor. It was just terrible. What was bad about it? The lack of anything good is what was bad about it. But again, that's subjective. That is my experience with it. I thought it was atrocious. I thought all these things were terrible about it. But that doesn't mean you need to feel it's terrible about it. If you watch the same thing and it worked for you, that's awesome. I am envious. I wish I had your experience, but I did not. I just found it was just a really piss poor show that tried to get by. Just slap the MCU label on it and people will love it no matter what. I mean, that's what it feels like their attitude was to me. And I think that's why Kevin Feige would never reference the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. He never referenced the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., even though they reference the MCU all the time. But that's just me. That's just me. If you love it, that's great. And I'm not trying to change your mind. I'm not trying to change anybody's mind about it. That's just how I felt about it. And you guys know I'm an MCU fan, man. I am. I like the MCU very much. But just because I like the MCU doesn't mean I'm going to like everything they do just because they're MCU. And Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. was just one of those things for me. But I recognize that there are a lot of people who like it, and that's awesome. But I don't, and that's okay. And that's okay. All right, thanks for writing in, Sam. All right, next. Yaz writes, John, you keep saying Agnes looked terrified of Wanda when Herb was talking. If Agnes is working for somebody else, as many suspect, then she could just be afraid of having to answer to her boss. Scarf Guy as Reed Richards, he needs a redemption arc. All right, so again, this is getting into stuff that then gets addressed in episode 7, and I'm not going to go there. I can't do that, unfortunately, even though, Yaz, you fairly wrote this in like 2 days ago. So, but I can't go there. I'm not sure who is Scarf Guy. Does anybody know who Scarf Guy is? Who is Scarf Guy? I'm not really sure. Not really sure. So I'm not quite sure what that's about. But as far as the Agnes stuff goes, we'll save that for the episode 7 spoiler discussion. Thanks for sending that in, Yaz. All right, MD writes, Someone wrote in asking if Falcon and Winter Soldier would address the comic stories of experimenting on black soldiers and Falcon's ethnicity being an issue. The showrunner Malcolm Spellman confirmed that would be a big part of the story in the interview with TV Line. Again, I remember that. I remember that question, MD. Somebody wrote in and says, do you think that the MCU will be, that Disney will be bold enough to address those? And to me, whether they do or don't has nothing to do with their boldness. It's about they just need to tell the stories they want to tell. If they choose not to tell those stories, I don't think it's a lack of boldness. And I think if they do tell those stories, it's not an abundance of boldness. I think they just tell the stories they want to tell. If they don't do it because they don't want to address certain things because they got other ideas, fine. But it sounds like, MD, if you're right about that, then maybe that will be stuff that they go into. Listen, I am looking forward to Ms. Marvel. I'm looking forward to Moon Knight. I'm looking forward to the Nick Fury series. I'm looking forward to the War Machine series. I'm looking forward to She-Hulk. I'm looking forward to Loki. I'm loving WandaVision. But Falcon and Winter Soldier is the show I have absolutely 100% been most looking forward to with the MCU Disney Plus stuff. And I cannot believe how close it finally is. So we'll see. We'll see. All right, next up, Cam K writes, hey, John, Agnes has not once indicated that it was Wanda who she was afraid of. She even played director when she cut that take, telling Wanda that basically she should hold the babies. And again, she looks at Herb. She was terrified, but never indicated. Well, again, that's exactly what somebody else said. And you're right. Again, without getting anything into episode 7, you're right. There was nothing that indicated, but it was what was implied. But you're right. It's not what was indicated. They never explicitly indicated that. You were 100% correct about that. All right. Mr. 47 writes, I think Tony Stark would be a phenomenal cameo and people would cry just to see him back because I definitely would. And that fits the Luke/Hamill/Joker surprise. Oh, yeah. Listen, I don't think it's likely that, I think Robert Downey Jr. is going to come back to the MCU. He absolutely is. It may not be this year, may not be next year, might not even be in 3 years, but he will be back. I don't think he's coming back this soon. But if Robert Downey Jr. were to appear in WandaVision, that would be maybe not quite as big as Luke appearing in Mandalorian, but it would be in that same class. You know what I mean? It would be in that same class. But again, I don't think we're going to see him back this soon. I think it's going to lead. Remember too, no, I don't want to go there. But I'll just say that it would be a huge deal. It would be massive, but I don't think they're bringing him back this early. I don't think he's coming back quite yet. All right. Greg Scott Bailey writes, I found myself watching WandaVision episodes several times now. And just about watched all of the MCU movies and shorts again, looking for clues and connections. Tonight is a Spider-Man Far From Home, and I'm loving this energy right now. Listen, dude, whenever you get an excuse to go back and watch all the stuff, it's great. It's always great. As a matter of fact, I even popped on, what did I pop on the other night? I popped on Thor Ragnarok the other night, again, for the first time in a while. I popped on Thor Ragnarok. And I really, really enjoyed it. Again, any excuse you get to have to go back and watch some of the shorts or whatever, always a good time, Greg. All right, next up, Jordan RTK writes, hey, John and Co. Hope you're keeping well. I am keeping well. Thank you so much. A bit late to the party, but I just watched Green Book. Loved Green Book. It was phenomenal, amazing laughs, tear-jerking moments, and Mortensen and Mahershala Ali's performances were literally breathtaking. Such an amazing feel-good movie. Green Book won the Academy Award for Best Picture, and it deserved it. I never understood. There were some people, though, when Green Book won the Academy Award, there was a bunch of people like, oh my God, why did that win? Like they acted shocked that Green Book won Best Picture, and it deserved it. But they were acting shocked. It's like, wow, that came out of nowhere. How did Green Book win? That came out of nowhere. It's like, really? It's been winning tons of awards the entire award season. This Film Critic Association, that Producers Guild, this. It was winning it wasn't winning all the awards, but it was winning more awards than any other film in the award season leading up to it. And I just never understood how some people just looked at that as like, really? Green Book won Best Picture? Oh, I couldn't. Like, this just came out like it's as if nobody had once mentioned Green Book, but it was winning awards left, right, and center leading up to the Academy Awards. Now, that doesn't mean you had to expect it was going to win. I just never understood this, that some people acted like it was a complete shock. Like, nobody ever thought it could. What are you talking about? Nobody. It was winning all these awards leading up to the Oscars. That doesn't mean it was going to win, but you had to at least know there was a legitimate chance it could win, with it winning everything else. Anyway, that's just me. I thought Green Book was absolutely fantastic. And you're right. Viggo Mortensen was amazing. Mahershala Ali was amazing. The movie was amazing. I love that movie, man. I absolutely love that movie. Anyway, that's just me. Next up. Jared's Reviews writes, hey, John, and we only got a couple of minutes left here, guys. Hey, John, having everybody speculate how MCU is going to introduce X-Men reminds me of when they announced that they were going to do Inhumans movie. I think about how much crowded the MCU would be if they did make an Inhumans movie, plus now an X-Men movie. Crazy. And remember, and by the way, Salvatore and Josh Bing both send in super chat badges in the live chat. Thank you, guys. I appreciate that. Yes, you are, listen, that Inhumans thing, I still kind of wish the Inhumans movie happened. Because the thing with the X-Men, the significance of the X-Men isn't an X-Men movie. It's the fact that you're bringing in like 200 new characters. Like, without exaggeration, probably it's more than that. It's probably well more than that. But you are bringing in hundreds of new characters. And it's not just, oh, now there are also X-Men movies. No, it's you have all these movies that could happen because you're literally bringing in hundreds of characters. The Inhumans movie, man, in hindsight, I wish they were able to do it because, again, this was a situation. You got to remember, back during the Inhumans time, Kevin Feige wasn't the boss of Marvel. Ike Perlmutter was the boss of Marvel and was Kevin Feige's boss. And Ike Perlmutter got to make certain decisions. And Ike Perlmutter decided they wanted an Inhumans spin-off series. They wanted an Inhumans series. And so Kevin Feige went, okay, fine. You go ahead. You go do your... I'm not going to have anything to do with it, but you go ahead and you do the thing and you go do make Inhumans. And that turned out to be one of the truly most monumentally awful things ever put on television. It was absolutely dreadful. It was absolutely awful, which is too bad. But now I kind of wish Feige was able to make that movie. But oh well, Jared's Reviews. It is what it is. We live and we learn. All right, Roberto writes, what if the big cameo is not a character, but a famous actor like Al Pacino is the bad guy? Thanks for Puerto Rico. Hey, that's been brought up many, like hundreds of times, Roberto. That is definitely a possibility. We know Al Pacino in the past has said he totally would like to do an MCU film. There is a lot of buzz around the idea of it being an Al Pacino. Could be. I don't know that it is. I'm not predicting that it is, but that's definitely a name that's on the table, Roberto. All right, R. Lee writes, HBO Max has just greenlit a Constantine show helmed by J.J. Abrams. We've had a movie, TV show with this character already. What makes them feel they'll be successful now? This character deals with dark supernatural themes. Does that limit his appeal? Sure, it limits his appeal, but it doesn't mean that limit is small. It means it's not going to be for everybody. You can have shows that have a limit to their appeal, but still be a big enough appeal to still have a significant viewership, right? It just means you're not possibly going to have the biggest viewership in the world, but you can still have a legitimate amount of viewership. You know, when I think about Constantine, I think of this. Do you guys remember? They gave Constantine his own show. Remember that? And here's the thing. Constantine, the series pilot, the first episode of Constantine, the pilot, was awesome. It was great. Let me see if I can pull this up. Constantine TV show. Let me see if I can just find this. I thought the pilot was fantastic. The pilot episode was great. Here's the problem, though. And then they even went and got the guy who played Constantine, and they brought him in to Legends of Tomorrow. The problem was I guess the studio saw the pilot and they were like, oh, this isn't good enough. This isn't good enough. And then, because I loved the pilot for that show. I thought the pilot was great. I was intrigued. I was into it. I was into the characters that they had. And then the second episode came out and they totally changed the show. Like the show from the second episode on was completely different from the pilot episode. I mean, we still had our main guy. We still had him. I think his name's Matt Ryan. It might be something else, but I think it was Matt Ryan. We still had him, but the show was like totally different feel. They swapped out like the secondary character and all this kind of stuff. And I was just like, what the hell? What the hell? And I hated the show after the pilot. Like the pilot was great and I hated the show after that. But maybe they look at that and say, you know what? Clearly there's a way to do Constantine better. Like supernatural stuff is all the rage right now. Constantine is a recognizable name. Clearly it can be done better. And maybe if we do it a different way in somebody else's hands, maybe it can be done a little bit better. All right. Last question of the day, guys. This comes to us from BW1979 who writes, hey, John and crew. So last year marked the 30th anniversary of the film Pretty Woman. Wow. I just wanted to get your thoughts on the iconic bubble bath scene with Julia going under and the many takes they had to do to get that scene right for the film. Thanks. Well, listen, first, I mean, the scene's great. The movie's iconic. I can't believe that movie's 30 years old. Julia Roberts, Richard Gere. Like it was like for a lot of people, not just women, but for a lot of people, that was like the romantic movie for a long time. Now, of course, that's ridiculous. It's a movie about a hooker and a John. I mean, there's something fundamentally wrong with that, but the way it was done, it's a fun, beautiful movie. I love Pretty Woman. But man, I cannot believe that thing's 30 years old. Cannot believe Pretty Woman is 30 years old. That is nuts. All right. Anyway, listen, guys. From an anonymous viewer, Kung Fu Hot Dog, Butters, and on. Do not worry, we are going to do a companion video this weekend and get all caught up on all the questions that got sent in. So Rob is actually going to do a companion video for me. He's going to address all the remaining questions that got sent in. So do not worry if your question hasn't been answered yet. Don't worry, give us like 24 hours and we're going to have a big companion video up to address all the remaining questions there. That will do it for me for now, guys, for this installment of the John Campea Show. Thanks for joining me for this quieter Friday. I appreciate you guys coming along. I appreciate you guys taking time out of your day to hang out with us here. Special thank you to all you guys who did send in those questions because, number one, you gave us great fun things to talk about. Pretty Woman is 30 years old. Number two, you supported this channel as you did it. And all of us here, thank you guys very, very much for your support. Once again, don't forget, in 2 hours from now, at 2 p.m., special starting time today, at 2 p.m. today, we'll be doing our WandaVision Episode 7 open spoiler review. The event is now posted. You can go jump on there and start talking in the chat board there, of course. Guys, don't forget, especially for our friends, our movie-loving and TV-loving brothers and sisters down in the state of Texas. Guys, please look out for yourselves and please take care of the people around you. And guys, everybody else, if you can jump on over to a lot of the different support sites, whether it's Red Cross or others that are pulling together money now to support the people down in Texas, please make sure to go and contribute to that. Ann and I did that earlier today. We encourage you to do that as well. Again, it's our film loving, TV loving brothers and sisters down there that need our help. So please go and donate something there for that. And then come back and join us for our WandaVision Episode 7 thing later today at 2 o'clock. All right, guys, that'll do it for me. Thanks a lot for being here. My name is John Campea, and until next time, my friends, bye-bye.